Hello, this is Jamie.
And this is Heather, and welcome to Using Our Inside Voice, a twice-monthly podcast where we awaken to the extraordinary meaning of everyday, mundane life by passing it through a particle collider of different and differing perspectives. Today we're using our inside voice to talk about automatic writing, messages from the guides, and how it all tied into the current influx of energy.
Boy, is it ever. It's been a very interesting, this stuff has been coming in for probably about 3 weeks now, realistically. I
How
mean,
so?
trickling in at first. Well, I want to say trickling in at first over I want to say probably 3 weeks ago is when I started noticing that I was getting more messages or getting prompted to go into kind of my more receiving mode,
What does that
if
look
you
like?
will.
What does that mean?
For me, it's really random, and it's like at moment in time, I just get this nudge, this inkling that I need to sit down and start writing. Most of the time, it will look like opening up the note app on my phone and just start writing whatever. But a couple days ago, I was prompted to start with the automatic writing again, which automatic writing is something that I was aware of doing when I was younger. Oh, let me back that up. I won't say that I'm aware. It was just something that I did.
Mm-hmm.
So as a kid, that could hear things happening on the other side. So I'm talking about, dead folks talking. Um, I mean, let's just call it what it is. That's what it is.
But was it
Um,
just dead folks? Mainly dead folks? Was it spirit guides?
as,
Could you tell the difference?
not at that age, because for me it started really early. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, as far back as I can remember, I want to say 3 or 4 is probably around the time that I can like really remember, because I wasn't just hearing, I was also seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hearing stuff, but I was also seeing things, and I remember probably the visuals more at that age. But I also remember, that I would talk to these individuals and they would talk to me. So, I don't know that, like, I didn't really talk to anybody about it though. I just figured I was an only child. I spent a lot of time alone in my room or outside with, the Barbie dolls. So for me, it would come out probably in play
Mm-hmm.
more often than not. Like conversations between Barbie and Ken, or Barbie and Skipper, or, I want to. Or I want to play spaceship today, so I would go and drag the lawn chairs from the backyard into the front yard and build little forts and sit inside and press, the different rungs of the chair like they were buttons on the spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had all of this, I had a lot of time to myself. Nobody was really in demand of my time when I was younger. I was either being watched by my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, or one of my parents, but they both worked. They worked on opposite schedules. So it was kind of like, well, here's the house. Do whatever you want, kid. Like, don't make a mess and don't kill yourself. Have fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, but as far as like the writing goes, I remember very vividly asking for notepads, and I would scribble and scribble and scribble and scribble and scribble on the notepads. I would go in my room and sit and scribble for an hour, and then come out and show whoever was there and ask if it says anything. Does this say anything? Does this say anything? Does this say anything? Like, I was so intrigued. It's like, clearly, this has to say something. It has to mean something. And I was always so disappointed when somebody would look at it and go, no, no. And it's like, I know it says something, but I know it does. Look again. It's like I kept wanting to, it's like to decipher the whatever code surely was coming through in this scribble.
Hmm.
So yeah, um, that was my first introduction, and honestly, I want to say that I probably haven't done anything like that in earnest since I really learned to write, because
So,
after that I think I kind of figured, oh well, I know how to do that now. If I know how to read and write, then like I don't need to do that anymore. I don't think I realized
that
at
you
the
were
time that
exchanging one code for another.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, a couple days ago, I got the nudge to put my earbuds in and grab a pen and paper and have at it. So my process is not generally close your eyes and doodle, although I know that that's how a lot of people go about it.
Hmm.
Mine is more, I kind of tune out. I go into that kind of liminal or trance state,
Hmm.
very much like going into a regression,
Hmm.
which you're so familiar with.
Hmm.
Um, and I just start writing. And a lot of the times it's very interesting because while I'm writing, I'm getting a lot of visuals.
Right.
So part of me is very tuned in to the visuals that I'm seeing. And I'm most of the time I get really interested in the visuals.
Hmm.
So I can feel myself being pulled out of the writing sometimes in favor of wanting to go and investigate visually, and then kind of getting nudged to go back. It's like, no, you're here to write, like write this down. It's like you can write and see at the same time. Do both, please. So yeah, and it's been interesting because it seems like everywhere we've turned recently, the same messages are coming through. There's definitely a shift in in how energy is coming through, who is picking it up, and the frequencies that are being emitted.
Well, but back to the writing. Back to the writing.
Okay.
Let's talk more pragmatically about what
Okay.
you downloaded. If are do you want to share any of that? Is it worth sharing? I mean, obviously, if they gave you a download, it's worth sharing. Um, did you want to
I mean,
give a synopsis? Did you want to read it? How do you feel would be, because when you read to me what you read to me, it stirred a whole bunch of questions, and then a very large download that was unexpected. So I'd kind
okay.
of like to dig into that, because I know that when I was first starting to work with this kind of, or play, not work, but play with this kind of energy, that was really what I was interested in. I was interested in processes. I'm not, you know, all the messages start to sound the same after a while, like love and light, and you are the light, and you came here for this, and you wanted to be here. And after a while, all of the messages just kind of make me roll my eyes, because A, I feel there's something bigger going on, and B,
Mhm.
they all, word wise, they all sound almost exactly the same. It doesn't matter if you're channeling Ashtar or Isis, or you're working with Sekhmet, or they're all saying the same thing. So I'd like to get into the
Yeah.
weeds of the message that you downloaded, so we can start to handle or explain some of what's happening when we get these messages that all sound the same.
So I will definitely say that as far as when I went back and read it, because that's basically my process. I'll do it and then I'll go back and read it, because just like being in regression, it's like I can remember bits and pieces,
Hmm.
but as soon as it ends, it's like, okay, well, let's see what we got, because I don't remember.
Right.
Bits and pieces will come back to me as I'm reading. And that's definitely my cue for you've definitely had this type of experience. Otherwise, this is it's basically my cue to myself that that I relinquished control
Mm-hmm.
and stepped aside and let whatever needed to come through come through.
Sure.
Um, so it's been a couple of days since I've even looked at it. So I'll go ahead and read it and again try to make it through my what ends up being chicken scratch by the time I'm done. But it says, in the awakening, there will be those who return to their soul families of light. You will be visited in your dreams, both in sleeping and in awake hours. Your thoughts will drift, your hearts will open, and your light will shine to meet your ancestors of light. The codes that you have carried for generations will come to you in these moments, in flashes of sacred places once visited, of ancient and otherworldly text once written, in familial sounding songs once sung. You are remembering. We ask that you remain open at these times. Strain not to see past what you are being shown. Struggle not to understand their meaning, but connect with their vibration and the frequency of your opening. These moments are perfect openings of receiving. Be aware of how it feels to receive these images and codes. Revel in how it feels to receive light code. Feel your heart expand. See the colors of your aura ever changing in your mind's eye, and feel your light body expand outside of the flesh while remaining safely tethered to the Earth Mother and her support. See the rainbow light bridge take shape and expand, bridging the gap between Earth and other celestial civilizations beyond your thinking mind's reach. You are the architects and future citizens of a civilization that is now being formed on Earth. It is a continuation of our expansion, our work together through space, time, and dimension. You are seeding a new existence for your soul, one which will never cease to be. Your immortality is sewn in the fabric of your compassion. You have learned by contrast what does not serve you. Think on these things no more. Release in your perfect time that which keeps you anchored to sadness or disparity. Observe what you have survived and feel the strength that your perseverance has afforded you. You are here by no small feat. Your contracts were many, and your journey to this point has been long, but you have arrived. The Earth, in her turn, has also been on a great journey, and together you arrive at a common meeting place in the heart. Her vibration has been raising, and you have risen to meet it. Your light frequency aligning to live in concert with one another. Magdalene's light keepers, daughters and sons of Isis, Maheno Anu, you have arrived at a place of hearts revealing. Remain open, allow the vibration of the light to dispense through the body. Breathe slow into the surge of light frequency. Breathe it in and know that you are the midwives of the new earth's birth, guiding a new frequency to seed itself in this land and space, a frequency that is uniting and harmonious, ushering in a new balance among the masculine and feminine. So that was it.
I feel like any good co-host slash interviewer on a spiritual program would react, beautiful message, beautiful message. But my ADD having ass are really like, I got the gist of it, and I just had a hard time sticking with it because it's all so, yes, it's beautiful, but it's also homogenous, and it's always homogenous when it comes from spirit. And so when you first read it to me, my reaction was, are they really giving us anything new here? Like, this is the same thing we always get. And then they informed me that while the words sound the same, the energy codes that are actually attached to the words are what are the real purpose of the message. So the words that we use to communicate on a daily basis, our language, is very restrictive, and they give us a message to comfort because they know that we're
Yeah.
consciously listening. But the point of the message to comfort and consciously listen is to keep us there so that they can deliver the energetic codes that are attached, that are subconscious, that we energetically pick up on. And I was like, that is an acceptable explanation for what's happening there. I mean, finally, because it's kind of been one of my bones of contention with the guides, that they all sound so cryptic and never give, especially when you're working with the Galactic Federation of Light.
Mhm.
I gave them a lot of trouble when I first started talking to them, because they were always so cryptic and not helpful. And it was frustrating for me, because I would always say, I understand if you can't tell me anything specific, but what you do tell me, it needs to be helpful for people. It needs to be something that they can apply, because after a while it
Yeah.
all starts sounding like platitudes. And we get enough of that from our government. So if you're going to bother to give us a message, make it at least somewhat pragmatic so that it's really, helping us. And there was some pragmatism in that message, to be fair. There was, you know, you basically, again, you signed up for this and you're here now and you're making it and you're succeeding. And that's all nice to hear. Um, but what came after I queried as to why all these messages sound the same was this ambiguous little drizzle of breadcrumbs. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I see a trail of breadcrumbs, and I'm like, well, and then of course me having no patience said, why are you always just doling out these puzzle pieces and it takes forever to assemble the puzzle? Why are we doing this? And that's when they chose to show me exactly why they do it that way. So if you've ever had a connection with your guides and you're frustrated because it just seems to take so long for them to disseminate these breadcrumbs or puzzle pieces to get you to where you're going, let me try to shed some light as to why that happens. They sort of overtook me and started giving me very large visuals very quickly, almost all at once. And it was so much energy that I couldn't sit still. And the only words that would come out of my face were, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I'm walking around my kitchen. I'm walking through my living room. Oh my God. Oh my God. I can't sit still. Oh my God. Jamie's having to listen to me on the other end, wondering what's happening. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. And it's because the energy that was attached to the visuals, first of all, the visuals had too much information compacted. It was like unzipping a zip file in a computer hard drive. And my
Mhm.
computer hard drive was not powerful enough to follow along. It wasn't, I needed time to process. The hard drive was crunching big time because there was way too much information compacted into these visuals that they were giving me. So if I had tried to explain the visuals, it would have interrupted the flow of the messages that I was getting, which were way more interesting than trying to get the energy out of my body. It wasn't physically, it wasn't uncomfortable. It was just, a lot. It was a little overwhelming. It was exciting. It didn't make
Mhm.
me anxious. It didn't make me nervous. There was no, negativity around it physically. It was just a lot. It was like when you get hit with crazy inspiration and you just can't sit still. It was like that feeling. And they're giving me these huge downloads, just clumps of information that the hard drive's crunching on. My brain hard drive is just crunching. And then after I had, after the visuals kind of slowed down and they sat with me while I processed it, and let me tell you, they were none too smug about my reaction. That's why we give it to you in breadcrumbs. And I was like, you know what? This is okay. I will take this any day. This is fun. This is fun for me.
Mhm.
Granted, that reaction was part rebellion because it was a bit much, but go for it. Let's do this. You want to do this? Let's do this. Um, but as I sat there and I started processing it, and the words started coming out of my mouth to try and explain what I had just experienced, I realized that while they unzipped the file and dumped it into the hard drive, and the hard drive was able to process the information, the words that I was conveying the message through, though they were all pragmatic and very process oriented and somewhat they were designed to be helpful, it's like the message was getting zipped back up as I
Mm-hmm.
was speaking. And what came out of my mouth was some homogenized, neutered version of what they had given me, because our language is so restrictive and so tiny and so small that it literally cannot verbally express what they dumped on me. So what
No, no,
happens
yeah.
is that they zip the file back up to be in our language. It's like it's gone through a translation app. And then what you are allowed to put out or to transfer, when you're transferring that file, you're transferring a zipped version, a condensed version. And so all who hear it are hearing the very minuscule pragmatic message that you've been given. But what their subconscious, they're energetically picking up is a coded version. So essentially, no matter how pragmatic they get with their messages, it's always going to be a condensed version. It's always going to be a homogenized version. Even if it's homogenized in a pragmatic way, in a 3D basic helpful hints way, it's like Cliff Notes version.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to sound like something you've heard before a million times, or worse, something you advice you would give to yourself or a friend who was struggling. And as you listen to the words that are coming out of your mouth and you realize they're not that helpful, you kind of get why they go for the more ethereal sort of love and light and hold the line and you've got this kind of message. Because if it's going to be neutered anyway, it might as well be a message that's full of support and love, because that's what your conscious mind is going to pick up on anyway.
Well, and they gave me a few insights as well, and part of that is, we it's like we want to get you in a nice relaxed state.
Mm.
Whatever words are going to get you to a place where you can breathe and slow down and be a little more accepting of the words, these nice words that are not harmful or asking too much of you,
Hmm.
or not doing anything to jostle you out of the physical state that they need you to be in order to receive that particular code.
Totally.
They need you to be relaxed. They need you to be as much in your heart space as possible, because that is where the frequency is resonating, and they need that frequency to resonate. It's also the reason why when you go to repeat it, it often does not, again, it sounds very homogenized and wah 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 wah, and I've heard this before, and why was it so, why was it such a revelation 5 seconds ago,
Yeah.
and now it sounds like, every greeting card I've ever read
Yep.
from Hallmark.
Right.
It's like, or every international coffee commercial I've ever seen. It's
Right.
like, it's very, and that is kind of, what they just kind of told me again, reiterating, was that is how you know that it is the frequency that you're looking for, and
Mhm.
not the words. Your our language is just simply not structured to hold frequency in that way. We're getting to the point where we're going to start speaking more energetically.
Mhm.
And right now, this is how that has to come through, because for most people, it's either still too far out there for them to begin to wrap their heads around. They're not into it. They don't want to listen to it yet, or they're at a place where they're curious and they're interested, but they're also afraid
Hmm.
still of what this all means, and am I crazy? Is my family going to lock me up if I talk about this at dinner?
Right.
Um, there's still all of these things that are being processed, and they're going to constantly show you the contrast between um, our human language and the language of energy, which is what they are using, which is frequency.
Hmm.
um, and how that settles into your body and triggers the visuals, and the visuals will stick with you,
Yeah.
and they'll trigger all sorts of other things. um,
Well, the visuals, when,
like,
the visuals are there to stick with you because that's how you build your
yeah.
vocabulary with your spirit team,
Hmm.
you know? It's certainly not going to
Absolutely.
happen. It's not going to happen through words. I mean, you can't hope to convey spiritual message with a language that was designed by sleeping people.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought this was very interesting because one of the biggest things that popped out to me was the you know don't try so hard to to figure out what the words mean.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, don't try to dissect this message. This is not the purpose of this message.
Let
We
it
need you to
let it
just sit
wash
in
over
this
you.
space,
Yeah.
let it wash over you.
Hmm.
We need you to, and that has continued to come through over the last several days. So, like, look, we need you to be in this space of opening. We need you to understand what it feels like. We need you to, and we get very caught up. The language, unfortunately, has taught us to reference certain things in a very particular way. When somebody says heart, we think about the physical organ within the body, the heart, the thing that's, yes, it is pumping the blood through our veins, and it's keeping us physically alive and going. But the heart space is different. It is not the organ, it is the space within the energetic self that also affects the physical body. It is our brain, our spiritual brain.
Hmm.
It's not our thinking mind, it is our feeling mind,
Yeah.
is the heart space.
The spiritual
and
processor.
and and that is where a lot of this work is being done, and they need us to realize when that is opening, and realize that feeling that is there, that kind of warming, tingling sensation, feeling of expansion in the chest area, like you want to throw your arms back. And it's like, kind of when you get that feeling like you want to give somebody a really good hug, and you're throwing your arms open, and it's like, oh, this is so great, this feels wonderful, that ooey gooey warm yumminess of a fantastic hug is kind of the sweet spot
That is not my
of
sweet spot.
where, well, I think for most people that is the sweet spot
I
of
don't
where they
know.
want you to feel energetically.
I don't, well, I don't know if it is. I think that it's, for me, when they're delivering messages and it comes right through my heart, it's like I, unfortunately, because I hate crying, it ends up making me cry. It's this feeling
Sure.
of overwhelm. It's not. it's not a feeling that I necessarily relish. I don't hate it by any means. I don't dislike it even. I recognize it as this. It's as if a symphony of voices, because it usually happens when I'm giving people messages or when
Hmm.
I'm receiving a download that I'm going to be giving as a message. The energy that comes with that is a feeling of a symphony of people telling that person or those people how proud they are to be related to them. It's like the most supportive, and it just brings me to my knees emotionally, just like, my God, if people could tap into the pride
Hmm.
that I'm feeling through this portal, well, they'd be in tears like me. And I guess in that way, it is like an energetic hug. It's just my reaction to that energetic hug is not ooey gooey. It's, oh my fucking God. how do how do I manage all of this
Yeah.
energy? This is crazy, you know? So I get what you're saying.
But you're also,
I just want people to know
you're
that
more
if
in
it's
tune
not,
to it.
well, yeah, but I also want people to know that if it doesn't come through as ooey gooey and something that they want to bask in, because it could easily be mistaken as anxiety. If
That's true.
if
That
someone's
is true.
experienced a lot of trauma and they might not be able to tell the difference between anxiety and excitement. And if you're one of those people who can't tell the difference between anxiety and excitement, having messages come through your heart like that when you're first waking up can just be overwhelming. And there's nothing wrong with you if that's the case.
This is true. This is very true. And I guess it's going to come through however it comes through best for you.
Hmm.
Most of the time for me, like, I will say that the same thing happens to me. I tend to get very emotional. It is overwhelming, but at the same time, I have come to a point in my life where I am willing to accept that I actually like that feeling as much as the overwhelm might be scary
Hmm.
sometimes. I feed off of that feeling.
Hmm.
I do enjoy it. So for me, it is like an ooey gooey, warm, squishy hug.
Hmm.
Like I have two people in my life that give amazing hugs. One I'm married to, and the other one has passed on.
Hmm.
And that's, if I think about that kind of like that kind of amazing holding, it's like I will puddle.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, I give in. And then like that's it. I am happy to just be in that space. Even though it is overwhelming. There is, however, um it makes me also think about what I experience when, and I don't know if we actually want to dive into this at all today, but it reminds me of what I feel when I am having a, gosh, how would I even describe that? What would I call that? A episode of basically melding together with my higher self, and it is very much a surge of energy. It is very overwhelming. I will tend to get very shaky and anxious and feeling like I've had 50 cups of coffee,
Hmm.
and warm, and I will start to lose, like, my cognitive thought kind
Hmm.
of goes out the window. If I'm having a conversation with somebody, it's very hard to hold that conversation, and it is almost painful.
Hmm.
And it's very similar. I think it's very similar. They're definitely tied together somehow, but that is, I was shown recently that that is a, look, girl, you're coming back together. You're sewing your pieces
Right.
back together, and you are rejoining what has what has always been there, but that you have pushed aside in favor of kind of your more beta brain survival mode
Mm-hmm.
on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
The things that you had to release in order to forget enough to be cool with being a human and giving this whole being human thing a go.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're definitely kind of cut from the same cloth, these experiences.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, either way, you're dealing with essentially a higher dimensional energy channeling through your physical body. So, of course, they're going to be similar, if not exactly the same. It's just, it doesn't matter if it's coming from what we refer to or think of as the higher self or your spirit guides or angels or whoever. They're all kind of the same thing at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, unification is unification. And then once you get out of the separatism of the 3D world, you're dealing with a unified energy. And as
Yeah,
you
we
go,
like labels. They don't like it so much.
right.
You know
Absolutely.
what I
They don't
mean?
even like giving their names when I'm doing regression sessions to be offered a name is happens very rarely. Usually, the only beings that'll offer a name are beings who decided to stay back, so to speak, as a guide for the person who's in session, but has incarnated with them many times on the planet. Um, and then the name is something that is, from what I gather, a trigger or code between the two of familiarity. But when it comes to channeling
Mm-hmm.
higher beings, they're not fond of names. They don't, a lot of them don't have names. I've gotten things like, uh, you couldn't say my name with your physiology. Your physiology literally will not
Mm-hmm.
allow you to make the sounds that are my name. I've gotten, I don't have a name, at which point I've said something along the lines of, can you give us a name to call you by so that as whoever I'm working with listens to this, they can start to recognize your energy and have a label for it? And they're usually fairly obliging in that sense. It kind of depends on how forthcoming that energy would like to be. um,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I that was one of the things that frustrated me most when I was first starting out is no one had names. And I was like, how are they supposed to know who you are if you don't have a name? What is happening, you know? And so yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it took some getting used to, but I get it now. I mean, I get a
Yes.
name is so limiting that it's not necessary where they're at. Everything is visual. Everything is unspoken, and it's just a new world order.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the other things that popped out to me during this one. There were a couple of things. They've been showing me a lot lately about like the rainbow body, rainbow light, rainbow bridge. These are things that they keep bringing up fairly continually, and I know that most of us have kind of the uh, a thought or a reference for Rainbow Bridge as far as like when pets pass over and things like that. This is not that. Um, this is definitely something different, and it is a bridging um, specifically, and the colors are in relation to the shifting of energies and the building of frequency. Are you okay there?
Yes.
What happened?
Uh, the
That
setup.
was a lot of movement.
I'm having setup issues. Let's just put it that way. Holy crap! What is happening?
Look, look, it's going to happen from time to time.
Continue.
It's just the, anyways. So, it's definitely a reference to the building of energies currently, and they're very specific about the seeding of a new frequency. The baseline of the frequency is compassion, but we are, another big reason for being in that heart space is to be able to hold and amplify and continue to build this new frequency that is basically going to be the baseline or starting point from where we next step off. So
and I think that's really important. Let me just interrupt you for just a second. I think that's really important because
sure.
If there's one thing that we're missing on the planet right now, it is the energy of compassion. I think a lot of us have compassion when it's very easy to have compassion, but when it is threatening or feels threatening, when someone's behavior or decisions feel like they might threaten our own, compassion goes right out the door, and suddenly that person's the enemy. So I get the compassion thing. It's very needed.
So that actually goes along with, so I had kind of another like mini writing episode this morning. So this was not with notepad and pen. This was just on my notes in my phone. Let me see.
Let me just say while you're looking for that, let me just say it's not lost on me that I have not shared the huge energetic download that once put into words sounds like, just your regular pragmatic download that I usually receive, but I will be sharing that. We'll work it back in.
Okay. Well, maybe this will stir it up again because it's similar to what I received a few days ago, but slightly different. So Earth and its inhabitants has a remarkable capacity for creation. Part of that creation is the endless capacity to create frequencies rooted in compassion and love. If you would only allow yourselves to be fully connected to the frequencies that you have the greatest potential for, you would have such a different perspective and experience on this plane. Here's what I know. Humans love happiness. You love to feel it and hold it and see it in others. When you see someone else holding joy, you hold it just by being near them. Your happiness grows when there is happiness in those around you. When others are hurting, you hurt for them. Your compassion grows and you envelop them with your love like a warm blanket on a winter's day. But you also hold a great amount of conditioning. You needed to learn how to survive here, but sometimes these lessons are too deeply etched. You don't realize your capacity for love, compassion, and happiness because your survival skills also taught you fear. Sometimes you let fear be your frequency. This frequency is a very low vibration and one that is unfortunately easy to hold. It takes very little light to generate. Your capacity to hold light is much more vast, but requires you to lay down the frequency of fear. You choose level 0.5, but your capacity is too high to even number. Today, I ask you to lean into your potential. Lean into the capacity for love, compassion, and joy that I know you hold. I want you to experience what I see every time I look in your eyes. Remember a moment that made your heart swell with love. Remember a moment when you saw someone else experiencing joy and your heart grew yet again with an overwhelming happiness for their enjoyment. Remember a time when you held compassion for someone, so much so that they could feel it and thanked your kindness with an embrace that once again filled your cup. Hold that moment. Feel that expansion in your heart space, and in this moment, understand that you are tapping into just a fraction of your actual capacity to love, experience compassion, and joy. Remember the warmth in your chest, the buzz in your limbs, the vibration at your core, the vibrancy of colors all around you, the smell of the air, the plants. Hold that and remember how good it feels to feel good. Know that every time you access those frequencies, you are lighting up and activating more of those frequencies around you. You are healing generations of grief, sadness, destruction, abuse, disparity, dis-ease. You are releasing these patterns from your own memories and experience. You are healing others, including the land that you're standing on and everything that it comes in contact with. Fear may be an easy frequency to create, but the capacity that the frequencies of love, compassion, and joy have are much greater and impact and last much longer. It's okay to know fear. It has been useful in our growth cycles, but it is the baseline for the emotions and frequencies that we enjoy the least. Use it as a building block for a higher frequency, such as compassion, but try not to visit it for too long. Practice your magic of healing today. Engage in the mindful practice of building higher frequency. Look someone in the eyes and smile a heartfelt smile. Give someone a hug and hold them tight. Say thank you to someone and really connect with gratitude when you do. Tell someone who looks like they need to hear it that they're doing a great job, or that their day is about to get better. Feel the deep magic in your ability to create this frequency and feel the healing that you just administered in that space. Hold on to that feeling for as long as you can and keep sending it out into the world whenever you get the opportunity. Every time you do, you are helping to create a new frequency that is currently being seeded and activated. You are building the new earth, and what a beautiful place it will be. So that was this morning at like 7 or so.
Well, cool.
So, but basically the same thing. Same message,
Mm-hmm.
slightly different wording.
Mm-hmm. Definitely from a
Um,
different
you know,
source, which gave it a different.
definitely from a different
It
source,
gave it, even the words had a different energy to them.
a different energy and a different tone, but working in the same direction. And then it was really funny because I ended up watching a video that was just kind of a random YouTube video. If I kind of having an off morning or a weird morning or a lazy morning, that's usually one of the first things I'll do is I'll just scroll through YouTube and play whatever pops up.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular video was somebody that I watch often. Um, he's a really nice guy. It has absolutely nothing to do with anything spiritual. But he was abroad and experiencing a celebration,
Wait.
and
He was abroad or he was abroad?
he was abroad as in a foreign country,
Okay. Just wondering. You never know.
overseas.
Okay. Good. Okay.
um, and experiencing a celebration, and was in a state of kind of exactly what this was pointing to, that state of wow, like everything feels great, the energy is great. Like it was really interesting to hear him talk because the language, although I've heard him say things like this before, it was everybody that he spoke to, it was all the energy here. The energy here, it's palpable. It's you can feel it, like everybody is having such a great time, and there's so much love and there's so much joy, and he was getting really emotional as he was speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And and I'm God, so grateful to be here, and what a great time, and how lucky am I, and look at all these beautiful people. And it was just, you could see, it's like, look, this is what happens when people get on the same page and are all holding that same frequency. It just builds and builds and builds and builds, and it works quick. Like it works really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're like, look, if you can just rip yourself away from these old paradigms long enough to engage in this and feel it, like you're not going to want to leave that space. That
Mm-hmm.
it feels too good to let that go. Um, and so the feeling right now for me is that they're really pushing this because it's like, come on, like we want you to experience this. Like this is great. You're gonna feel fantastic. All of these things that you want to, release from your life and your experience right now, like this is how you do it. And the more you can practice this, the easier it's going to be to tap into it and create more of it.
Yeah, but I
Um,
think at the same time, it needs to be stated that because I know that when I receive advice like that, it sounds so straightforward. But the truth of the matter is that it is not straightforward. And if we go
it's not.
into the journey of staying in that, positive emotion because we think it's straightforward, it leads to things like spiritual bypassing, which is where you feel like crap, but you don't want to say it because that's negative. So you're just going to keep affirming that you feel great until you actually do, which, by the way, never works and will never work.
Uh-uh.
Because the truth of the matter is that when you decide to commit to the journey of staying or achieving a place where you can stay in a positive emotion, that journey first must show you all the places where you're not committed to doing that, where you're more
Mhm.
committed to the program that tells you you should feel horrible here. And the problem with trying to just not feel horrible is it will get louder the more you don't listen to it, and you will feel, because you've conscious in your conscious mind, you've committed to feeling good, you'll feel like you're failing, and you're not failing. You are on a journey that you've decided the end game for yourself, and every step is a step towards that end game, whether it feels good or not. And we have a lot of programs in us that tell us we need to feel a certain way, which is not always good, or it's not always a good feeling, in order to achieve whatever it is we're trying to achieve. And that has to be purged as well. And, as you may or may not know, the only way to purge things is to experience them consciously.
Mhm.
And that's where things get a lot more complicated than just stay in a good vibe, feel the good feels. It's so much more complicated than that. So if you feel like you're failing, you're not failing. You're not failing. You are working through it. You're on your way. If you have made the decision that you are going to improve yourself, you're going to heal yourself, you're going to improve your life, you're not living like you used to live because you realize it damaged you and it made you sad. You have done the work to put yourself on the path. Do not believe that in order to remain on the path, you must remain in that outcome mindset. You can't hold on to that outcome in order to actually arrive at your destination. You have to say to yourself, I'm going to improve these things about myself and my life. I'm going to feel better and I'm going to feel freer and I'm going to feel more empowered. And then you have to let that go and let life show you the many ways in which you are not on board with that agenda. Speaking as someone who's
Yeah.
just coming out of it personally and who has a lot of friends going through it right now, this is shadow work. This is the purge.
Oh, absolutely.
And that is the
1000%.
process. That's the process. There's no way around it.
Absolutely. And like I said, like, you know, these messages have been coming through consistently. it doesn't mean that I wake up in a cheery, happy fucking mood every morning.
Mhm.
Far from it.
Mhm.
The last couple days, I've also been going through some of the most enormous pain imaginable, like things that I haven't felt in years, physical experiences that I have not felt in years have been hitting me over the last several days. And so I've been dealing with that as well. But it's it is interesting to me to step back and be the observant, you know,
The observer.
the observer, the bystander, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
in my own life, in my own happenings, and go, you have the capacity to do both. You have the capacity to both hold this awesomeness over here, and you have the ability to experience the pain and acknowledge that that pain is coming up for a particular reason, and that that's something that you need to, you know, look into and address and keep working on. And it's a constant back and forth, give and take. You know, it's like the messages come, I feel good about it, I can look at it and lean into it in the moment. I can feel horrible at the same time or alongside. I can dive into that. I can do work surrounding that, which often looks like, you know, first and foremost, some sort of self care. Because for me, that's always been an issue.
Mhm.
I tend to not want to slow down, stop, and take time to actually take care of myself or set up energetic boundaries that are helpful for me when I am personally going through something that I need to pay more attention to. Um, so, you know, sometimes it means, look, I'm not going to get as much done today as I put on my to-do list. My to-do list is going to change, and instead the things that I'm going to accomplish are going to look a little different. They're going to look like taking care of myself. They're going to look like, you know, giving myself the time that I need uh, to to process this pain and to be gentle with myself. And you know, maybe I'm not going to go visit my parents today. Maybe I'm not going to go out and go grocery shopping today. Maybe I'm going to order them instead and have them brought to the house.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm not going to um, go and clean my car out. Maybe I'm going to do something different instead. Maybe I'm going to work on a project that requires a little less of me today. Um, you know, so yeah, it's a balance.
Yeah.
It's a balance, and it's a balance every day and every second. Um, but you know, and I think that sometimes we don't realize that we have the capacity to feel both. It's like, look, you can absolutely feel wretched in one moment and then experience, you know, a funny meme or a commercial or get a text from a friend and have a smile on your face.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that you're automatically cured of your funk, but it
No.
also doesn't mean that you can't find a moment of joy in your pain either. And I think the more that we kind of learn, it's like, okay, both of these things can exist at the same time. It's okay that both of these things don't exist in the same time, but both of these things can exist at the same time.
Right, they're not
And
mutually
you're not a
exclusive.
nutter. Yeah, and you're not a nutter if you're feeling both at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like, we have all of these conditionings and terms, and it's like, oh my gosh, now I must be fill in the blank. And it's like, look, don't put that much pressure on yourself.
Mhm.
It's really not necessary. Just just be open to feeling whatever you need to feel whenever you need to feel it.
Mhm.
And that includes both the heartbreak and pain and the joy. I've definitely gone through times in my life where, especially when you're going through physical pain, like I've had a lot of things that I've gone to in my life previously where I've been in patterns of just pretty much consistent physical pain. And I remember that, like, sometimes I would actually feel guilty for having a good moment, even if it was just for 5 minutes, because it's like, well, no, I feel, but I feel so physically horrible. Like, why am I also feeling joy? Like, how can I have both things? If I feel joy, if I see, if people see joy on my face, then they won't believe that I am sick or that I am feeling horrible,
Right.
because we have created these associations, and you kind of, I mean, you know, there are a lot of people going through things like that out there, and it's really, really crappy, because you're like, well, if I don't go around looking or acting like I feel like I do all the time, then people won't accept that I am
Hurting.
not 100% right now,
Yeah.
and that I'm hurting, and
Mhm.
that I need support.
Mhm.
They're gonna be like, "Oh, she looks fine.
Mhm.
Look, she just laughed at that joke.
Mhm.
She's all right. You're all right, girl." And it's like, well, I'm not, but I had a good moment.
Mhm.
Like, you can be both. It's okay. That also shouldn't keep you from feeling like you need support,
Mhm.
or feeling like you need to reach out, or feeling like, I need 5 minutes separate from this thing that's making me feel physically unwell, and I want to give myself a mental break and laugh for the next hour.
Mhm.
That's the best medicine ever,
Mhm.
you know but I would deny myself that in those times, because I just figured, well, if I don't 1000% commit to feeling horrible, I won't be supported when I need it.
Right. Before we go on too much further, I want to recap because you said some very important things when you were talking about self care, and I just wanted to break those down into bullet points so that anyone who was just listening and maybe didn't pick up on it consciously can pick up on it consciously. So, self care tools for when you're not feeling, you know, up to doing what your whole to do list. Not doing not doing is number one on that. Make it normal. Normalize not doing.
Mhm.
And inevitably, for the majority of us, not doing is going to instantly trigger uh, stories that put our self worth into question, guilt narratives, shame narratives, because we have been raised in a society where, in order to succeed, you've got to be willing to work and work hard. Uh, Yes, to a degree, but also that's a rabbit hole in and of itself. Let's redefine work and work hard. But back to my point, not doing is okay. When you're not feeling well, even if
Mhm.
it's just you're exhausted, because guess what? When the earth is being whammied by this much energy, you will be exhausted.
You're gonna be
You're
exhausted.
going to be exhausted, among other things, which we'll get to later. The second thing you said was trading out one thing for another, you know, making sure that
Yeah.
you are remaining conscious of the things on your list and that those things are interchangeable. It doesn't have to happen in a certain
Yeah.
way, you know, allow yourself to switch one thing out for another. And the third thing you said, which was great, is rethinking how you can accomplish certain tasks. There's more than one way to skin a cat. How can you get those groceries? If you're not going to go and pick them up yourself, what are some other things you could do? Is there a more local place you could go to just pick up a few things to hold you over? Can you order them and have them delivered? Can a friend pick you some stuff up and put it on the porch? There are a multitude of ways to get things done. And what happens is when we don't feel well, we get triggered into the guilt and shame, and the guilt and shame becomes our overbearing parent and says, well, if you don't feel well enough to go to the store, I guess you're going to starve.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
That's it. I
Absolutely.
just wanted to make sure that people picked up on that because it was so woven into the story that I was like, wait, this is important. This is good shit.
Yeah.
We got to highlight this. This is good. I got to write that down.
Seriously, I mean, I still have to remind myself. It's like, look, you can do this differently. It's okay.
Hmm.
Like you, you need to if you need some time, you need some time, and it is okay.
Yeah. So
But anywho,
I guess since I promised, since I brought it up,
yeah, let's
uh,
loop back around.
for those people who are wondering what the download was that overwhelmed me and made me walk around my kitchen, um, again, it's difficult to explain, but I'll do my best. They were showing me that the collective energy that we're experiencing right now, this collective purge that we're in, is a part of the cycle moving from a shadow to light, which is a cycle that we've been in for thousands and thousands of years. Um, and they showed me the infinity symbol, and they showed me that point in the middle where that figure eight loops and the cycle changes to a new part of the cycle. So you've got, if you imagine it in black and white, one side black, one side white, we're moving from that black side to the white side. And we're getting very close in by their definition, which of course, they never give you a timeline because time doesn't exist to them, blah, blah, blah. But that we're getting very close to that flip onto the different part of that energy, the lighter side of that energy. And of course, as we get there, as we approach it, the shadow will be more considerable and it will purge. And that they're taking advantage of that natural part of the cycle to, well, first they want you to know, us to know that, the reason Earth, unlike some other, I don't know what to call it, creations, has not been destroyed and, has not we have not destroyed Earth. We have not been allowed to destroy Earth. We have not been allowed to compromise the creation of Earth. And the reason for that is because the spiritual basis on which it was built is still sound and valid. There's nothing wrong with the
Hmm.
spiritual energies that were woven together to create our reality. And our reality was actually designed to handle this period of darkness that we've been slogging through. So they won't allow it to be destroyed, which, always comforting to hear that the apocalypse won't look like complete destruction. Um, but they also wanted to know, or they showed me oh gosh, how do I say this? That so they show me a dragon, and it's like they are luring the dragon away from its hoard. Because, and the way they're doing this, the dragon represents the powers that be, the government, the structures, the systems that are in place that have governed our lives for many, many years. We are, enough of us are awake now, and more are awakening every day, to where we're starting to see the fuckery. And we're like, well, wait a minute. I don't agree with that at all. I don't support that at all. That is not okay at all. And because of that, the dragon, so to speak, is now like, wait, my hoard, my power, my control, my manipulation is threatened. So I have to do something to manage the threat. And the point of that is that while the dragon is off managing its threat, putting on its game face, making sure that we stay asleep, making sure that the fear narrative is pumped up, the volume is hiked up on that fear narrative, distracting us with all of that stuff so that they can keep playing the games they want to play. Then in comes spirit, flooding the planet with light. And of course, when I got this part of the message, I was kind of like, seriously, dude, really? Like flooding the planet with light? Are we doing that? That's the message again? And yeah, that's the message again. I mean, when I pick up messages, it's not usually a flooding the planet with light message, because they know I'll roll my eyes at it, because, 8 million other channelers are picking up the same thing. And I don't need it. But the way they showed it to me was fascinating, because it was so strategic. That as they've pulled the ego away, as they've pulled that false power, away, they come in with this influx of light, and the influx of light changes the foundation that all of that old energy had been sitting on, to the point where it is no longer a resonant match with the old energy. So when the dragon comes back to reclaim its throne, satisfied that it's, put up firewalls and built a nice shiny facade that'll keep us tricked for a little while longer, it won't have any place to sit. It won't have any place to be anymore. Its layer will have completely changed out from under it, and it won't even recognize where it belonged. And I was like, that's really, that is kind of deep. That's deep, you know? And and the way they show it to me is that, everyone's always afraid that it's going to be so destructive, and they're like, make no mistake, the chaos will increase. But they kept on saying the word soft. It'll be soft. There will be a softness when the change finally happens, when we hit that middle point where the cycles shift from one to another. They just kept on saying softness, almost like they likened it for me to an EMP pulse, which is an electromagnetic pulse, where if it goes off, it just sort of eliminates all of the electricity. Now, I didn't take that literally, but who knows? But it was a silence. It was a hush. It was a kind of a confusion, like, what just happened? How do we move on from here? No one was in peril. No one was in danger. Everything was fine. It was just completely different. I don't know what that's going to look like. I have my guesses. I'll leave you to yours. But that was the message. And, give me a tin hat. I don't know. But that's what came through. And I knew that if I didn't share it and I had been listening to this, I would have been like, what? You can't leave me hanging. So that is what I got. And you are welcome to do with it as you please.
Nice. I like it. No, it makes a lot of sense. And to me, it's moving from that very distorted version of masculine and feminine energy that we've been experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
I know we just always talk about the patriarchal and things like that. but it's even so much in, I think about a lot of there's been a lot of movement to try to get, women back in the forefront, back, you know, evening things out. But something that I have noticed and something that they have continually pointed out throughout the, last, I want to say probably, you know, 10 years or so has been the way that we've been going at it hasn't quite really worked because as we're kind of, trying to be empowered and step into that, um, that new space of being and, uh, use our voices, and we're kind of going about it using what we have learned from the patriarchy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We're definitely, we're
we're,
not
we're
kind of, we have absolutely been using male energy to assert female dominance, which is the exact
but it's
opposite of female
distorted.
energy. Yeah.
It's distorted male energy.
Yeah.
So it's not grounding energy. It's not grounding into planetary energy, which really is the energy of the masculine, is the seeding of energy into the planet, the firm planting of the, how do I even describe it, of the more, kind of emotional, and not emotional in a Crimea River way, but that softer, nurturing. It's helping to weave that through. That is the true kind of balance point. But the distorted energy is the, I'm going to piss on it, put a flag in it, and make it mine. It's not it's not energy with, it's energy over.
Right.
Energy over, power over,
Mm.
not power with. And so there is a distortion of both energies out there. There's the, I'm going to take my power back, and it's like, look, I'm all for empowerment and using your voice and stepping out there, but it it's not going to be super helpful if you're just weaving it with that same energy. You're just putting the same thing back out there. You're just doing it in a different physiology, and that's not creating anything new. That's just reaffirming what's already been there,
Hmm.
and it's just not very helpful. Um, so that softness, and you can liken it to certain, um, motherly type things. You can liken it to Mother Earth or Mother Nature. Mother Nature is more than happy to give you, beautiful trees and a lovely ocean and green grass in the spring and lovely flowers. But she will also give you floods and thunder and lightning and hurricanes.
Hmm.
It's not because she hates you, it's because this is a balance. This is a rebalancing. There is something that is out of balance that needs to be balanced, or there is something that is building that needs to be released, and this is how it's being released.
Hmm.
It's not being done out of malice. It's being done out of a need to come back to a point of balance or a need for a type of release. And even with our own mothers, mom can scold you and say, you know don't touch the hot stove, and yell at you, but done out of a place of loving intent, not, hey, stupid. You know what I mean?
Depending on the mom.
So, well, depending on the mom. Yeah, I guess that's true. But, but that's the visual that they give me is the, it's not like, you know, we have been taught that that softer feminine energy is weakness, and it's really not.
Mhm.
It's the most amazing strength ever. I mean, that's that you can have that feeling of, I love this thing, and I want to nurture it, and at the same time, I will be more than happy to, you know, also deliver, the toughness when that is necessary, not out of a place of ego and power, but out of a place of there's an imbalance, and that imbalance needs to be evened out. And
Mhm.
this is how that happens. So, those are the things that come up for me when you talk about something like that. It's that bringing back that balance, and the kind of the reconditioning of the highly distorted masculine that we've been working with, and the distorted feminine that we've been working with, because there's definitely it exists in both, not
Yeah.
just one or the other.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a balance, and again, that compassion energy is, although it exists in both, that is very much a feminine seated quality that
Mhm.
the male also accepts and holds and is helping to seed. It's kind of like, the bringing the concept and the thought into fruition.
Mhm.
One needs to help the other to kind of pull that through. It's a combination. There's always a coming together to make those things happen, you know, in our lives and in nature in general. We're seeing it right now. Hello, spring. As I'm looking out my window and seeing all the things starting to bloom, and thank goodness it's not as windy today as it was yesterday, because wow,
That was fun. The winds are fun.
that was crazy.
So
I was
let's
like,
say
dang, the winds of change. They're a blowing.
I mean, being an air sign, I really appreciate wind. It's one of my favorite things. So as long as it's not blowing my house of sticks down, I appreciate it very much. Let's say
I
before
don't
we
appreciate what it does to my sinuses,
Uh,
but
I get that. I can completely understand that. That is valid. Sinuses do not necessarily agree with the wind. Um, let's say before we wrap things up, we talk about some symptoms that people might be experiencing right now as a result of this great strategic plan.
oh, definitely. Yeah, there's a lot.
Oh yeah, I mean,
So definitely, like,
that's the thing is it'll run the gamut depending on who you are and where you're at in your journey, what you're going through in your life. But for me, I'm experiencing fatigue, a lot of fatigue, and crazy dreams. I totally had a UFO dream last night. Now that I think about it, weird dreams, and not being able to sleep through the night. Definitely waking up and staying up for hours, much to my chagrin. So those are some of the symptoms that I've been experiencing.
yeah, I wake up in the middle of the night, and it's not even a, oh, I'm kind of sleepy, I'm gonna try to go back to sleep. No, it's a, you're awake.
Yeah.
You're awake
Oh.
now.
Oh yeah.
Now you're awake. You're awake. You are not going back to sleep.
Mhm.
Here, scroll through your phone, find a nice meditation, and I hope you get what you need out of this. So that's usually what my very early mornings will look like. Will look like me scrolling through the phone with earbuds in, trying to find a meditation, hoping that it will eventually help me get back to sleep, afford me some sort of sleep. Definitely fatigue, feeling overwhelmed in the body. This is a big thing too. This has also been coming through quite a bit. Paying attention, paying very close attention to how things show up in your body. How does it feel in the body? Where is that feeling sitting in the body, and exploring that rather than coming to like a rash and complete decision over why whatever X, Y, or Z is affecting you the way it's affecting you.
Huh? I
For
don't.
example, the I'm gonna try to, that fell out of my face. I'm gonna try to back up and
Okay.
actually make some sense out of it.
Cool.
So what they mean is, like, for me personally, again, I tend to get this very uncomfortable um vibratory feeling throughout my body. I will feel it a lot in my shoulders and in my low back. I tend to want to kind of curl up when it's happening because it's very uncomfortable, borderline on painful. And it is just an energetic surge is what they show me. They're like, look, you're getting a lot of it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Your body is able to hold it. It has capacity for it. It is just very different, and there's a lot of it at once, and it's not sure what to do with it. So the more mindful you can be about when you are having some sort of physical reaction to something that's going on, and where you are holding it, and then being very conscious of trying to release that. One of the things that they have told me, this is just in the last couple of days, and I thought it was kind of funny. They were like, we want you to slow down, take some deep breaths, and we want you to relax your face into a gentle smile. And at first, I'm like, fuck you. This is painful. The last thing I want to do is fucking smile. I don't think so. No. But they are like, give it a try. And so I'm like, fine. So I took some deep breaths and brought up a smile and was really amazed at how it is nearly impossible to hold tension in your body while you are smiling. A nice, soft smile. Like, I'm not talking the weird forcing Joker grin. I'm talking just breathing and letting that exhalation turn into a nice, gentle smile. It relaxes your entire body. And I'm like, damn, this means I have to smile more often.
Of all the dirty, rotten tricks.
Tricks, right? It's like, now I have to smile more often too? Man. But it's actually a really decent trick. I'm like, all right, fine. I'll smile more often. But yeah, like for me, that's one of the big ones, is that very buzzy, clenching kind of feeling, because there's just there's an energetic surge happening, and my body is like, whoa, 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 whoa. We don't know if we want this, and it's like, yeah, you want it. Just, it doesn't mean that you have to hold it, but let it pass. But the more you clench up, the more you're actually holding it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you don't have to keep all of this.
Right.
Just let it let it go through you, let it travel through you. But our lower chakras are the places where we're processing all of those things, and that also tends to be one of the places where most of us are really shut down, especially empaths, because we don't want to feel all the feelings. We already feel all the feelings. We feel everybody else's feelings. Uh, we usually do not want to take the time to process them, and all of that processing is done in those lower chakras. So your solar plexus, your sacral, and your root. Your root is basically your tether to the best releasing pathway that you have, and that's your pathway to the earth.
I knew you were
I
going to
mean,
bring it
it
back to
can suck
grounding.
up and absorb anything. I know. Well, we it's another big thing right now is the grounding, because there is so much energy going through.
Yeah.
So yeah, that grounding is definitely a thing, and whether it's, whatever works for you, whether that's taking a walk on the beach, putting your feet in the sand, going outside and doing some gardening, getting your hands in the soil, hugging a tree, um, grabbing some garnet or some bronzite or some shungite if you're working with crystals, because those are all really great for grounding in a way that's not so, or black kyanite. Black kyanite too is another good one. Those are all stones that are great for grounding, that are not as they're not as intrusive to your own energy as something heavier like a black tourmaline.
Yeah.
Like, black
Black
tourmaline is like
tourmaline.
shutting a gate.
Yeah.
But it's like, uh, the others are a little softer and will allow you to still keep doing the work that you want to do without shutting everything down. Like, I always have a hard time with black tourmaline because it feels like I'm being cut off, and that's an uncomfortable feeling too. So I prefer one of the others, and usually I prefer garnet, because garnet is also very nurturing.
Mhm.
But yeah, however that works for you. Salt baths
Mhm.
also
Mhm.
fantastic.
Mhm.
I've taken 4 salt baths in the last 3 days.
Wow.
It's been helpful. So, you gotta find what works for you, and be willing to continue to shift
Mhm.
what works for you. I know a lot of us will get stuck in a routine and we're like, nope, this is the one that works for me. This is the only thing that works for me.
And well,
And then all of a sudden you find yourself in a place where you're like, that's not working anymore.
that's a good
What
point. That's
happened?
a good point because that also brings an opportunity to play. We
Mm-hmm.
we're designed, we're already predispositioned to come up with systems to make and facilitate efficiency in our lives. But, when something's
Mm-hmm.
not working, if you can stay open to the idea that there are a multitude of things that you can play with, like earthy oils you could play with.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different things that you can think of. It gives you an opportunity to be creative. And that instantly
Yeah.
brings in your
Smelling
other,
earth.
yeah, yeah. And that brings in your other senses. It brings in your other chakras, and it starts to make a more cohesive system, which helps you ground out that
Exactly.
energy.
The words
So,
right out of my mouth.
yeah. So
Absolutely.
start looking for opportunities to play especially when you're not feeling well, because play
Mm-hmm.
is one of the lightest energies. It's inspiring. Sometimes you're going to be in a position where even play is too much, and you've got to let yourself have that. But if you are in a place where you find yourself fighting what you're going through, you have to start initiating the energy of play. How can I
Mm-hmm.
turn this, like all this energy that I'm expending on fighting and rebelling? How can I take that same level of energy and just play? in ways that might benefit me. And if something doesn't work, it didn't work, but you had fun doing it. And I guarantee you that you won't be able to tell the difference between something working because it was poof magic and something working because it was play. Play is every bit, if not more magical. I mean, all of these things are just permission slips to play anyway. So
Mhm.
if you can, conjure up a little play spell for yourself, make it so, you know, let your freak flag fly.
And sometimes it really and sometimes yeah, and sometimes it really is just that nudge to get your creative spirit going,
Mhm.
to initiate the, that that creator in you, because that's a big part of who we all are.
Mhm.
And one of our most amazing abilities is our abilities to create whatever that is,
Right.
you know, whatever that means to you. When you're playing, you're also creating, and sometimes you're given that contrast to nudge you out of your seat a little bit,
Mhm.
to go and do that thing that's different, or think of a new way to get that task done, or to, think of a different way to communicate. It's ultimately, it will all come back to that sort of creative energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Invent new ways for yourself. That is
Cool.
play. That is play. And it's like that meme says where the scientists are talking about how it takes 400 repetitions of an action to create a new synapse in the brain if it's, just repetition, but if it's done through play it takes 20.
Hmm.
Not a coincidence.
Hmm.
The guides want you to play.
It's like that excitement and wonder and possibilities.
Curiosity.
That's that curiosity that fires a whole different system. Like, it's really interesting because I tend to see visuals and visions of how the body's energetic system is functioning, and seeing all of the little electric synapses and everything firing. And it's always so interesting because, like, in those moments of like the aha, when you discover, like, discovery, and the wonder and the curiosity that comes before it, it's like they're like all these little mini explosions
Mm.
that are happening. Like, that creates a lot of energy in and of itself.
Yeah.
So, all those little processes, they're really so much more helpful than we realize. So whatever you need to do to, either nudge yourself or be a catalyst for yourself. I always love to keep coloring books and crayons in the house, just in case, I'm having a really potentially crap day.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, well, let's go grab the coloring book and crayons, and let's spend the next half an hour coloring a picture.
Hmm.
And, it'll take me out of that space of whatever that thing that I was hyper focused on, and, gets me to play with color, and, how can I make this very static thing come to life.
Hmm.
So that's one of my favorite easy ways to do that. If I cannot come up with something, immediately, if nothing comes to me that sounds really interesting, that's probably the first thing I'll grab.
Hmm.
How about you? Do you have a go-to,
First thing that comes to mind is
or is it
music.
just whatever in the moment?
It is with it's
Mm,
whatever in the moment with
yep,
music. So and it'll be whatever music kind of matches my mood.
that too.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love that.
Yep. So
Lots of
good.
playlists. We have more on that upcoming.
We do. That's right. So I guess it's a good time to say thanks for listening. And if there's no objections, I will do our little outro like we're professionals or something.
Cool.
Whoa. Okay. So join us next week as we use our inside voice to talk about 80s music and how the 80s were a decade meant to catalyze the awakening of that generation and beyond, tied into the music, tied into the entertainment. Spirit has had some interesting messages about that. So join us next week as we talk about that. And until then, this is Heather.
And this is Jamie.
And we're using our outside voice to say, stay safe, stay sovereign, and we will see you next week.
We out.